Happy New Year, my sweet darling friends, and welcome back to Dungeons & Dragons Storytime here at Rip Daddy's Cozy Holiday Chalet. I'm your friend Dave Makes Noises. Now get you some Tylenol, clean up all that glitter off of your wherever, and wipe the sparkling whatever you drank off your character sheet binder, because today we are asking you, who's your favorite D&D character you've ever made? Part 1. Okay, so I am what some in the D&D playing realm would call a newbie. I've only been playing for 2 years, and I love it! But since I've not been playing that long, relatively, I've only had 5 characters. 2 from longer running campaigns, 2 whom I'm playing in campaigns now, and 1 which I created mainly to play when traveling. I've joined D&D groups in Poland and New York so far. Those are 2 different places. It's this last one who's my favorite, at least for now. A Tabaxi divination wizard with an entertainer background, dressed like a Romani. High intelligence, of course, higher dexterity, at least until the ability score improvement. Though a wizard, my Tabaxi doesn't use fire or necromancy spells. No tragic backstory, just fire and grasslands, where my Tabaxi grew up and was taught by an uncle don't mix well. Also, necromancy can be slightly on the maybe evil side, so that's avoided. With 9 siblings and a carefree attitude, my storyteller Tabaxi is all about the adventure. Even as a motto, go for it! I hold the headcanon that each different game I've played with my Tabaxi is a different reality/universe. In one, at first level, my Tabaxi tried to climb a pyramid that was actually alive/a rock creature, then rolled a 20 on persuasion/being charming. Also was downed in 1 hit, cause wizard. In another, 7th level, my Tabaxi made a deal with a hag on behalf of another player character and ended up with no memory of a sister, a drink addiction, and not being able to dream anymore. There was also the time that a bunch of enemies managed to line up in a line 5 feet wide right before my turn and got lightning bolted to death. So overall, super fun, quirky, upbeat character with some super fun abilities. There have been quite a few I really liked, but there were 2 I felt really close to. I think partly because of the group I was playing with and partly for other reasons. Suleiman al-Zafar, this was back in Advanced D&D 2nd edition days. He was a fighter who got sucked into the mists of Ravenloft, an honorable, devout, stoic, and caring guy in a realm that constantly tested his faith. But after many travails, he was part of the group that finally made it out of that accursed realm. One of the things about that game was that the DM was very by the book about most of AD&D's rules and details. We had no clerics, and healing took days and days. So he spent almost the entire 2-year campaign below full hit points. Also, as a fighter, really almost the only mechanics for him to gain XP were through fighting, which probably would have killed him quickly under the circumstances, except for the fact that the DM ran very investigative adventures with only occasional combat. However, this meant that he advanced very slowly, and gaining a new level didn't grant him much anyway. The only other way to gain XP was through very small, house-ruled XP awards for figuring out clues. This resulted in me becoming medium skilled in discerning the DM's thought processes, and sometimes it took weeks to figure things out. The game progressed very slowly. It sounds kind of like a little hell to have this very mundane character constantly on the edge of death, trapped in a slowly plotting narrative, but in a way I made my own fun. I really got into his personality and better at figuring things out, and the idea of a character trying to endure and make the best of a miserable setting and maybe help others in some capacity kind of appealed to me. I've had other characters who had more impressive powers or cooler tricks, but Suleiman I think I might have felt closest to. Slunk. This was the first character I played in 5th edition, part of a group that was usually just me, 1 other player, and the DM. Slunk was a greedy, craven elf. Starting the game, along with a bunch of other characters, he somehow ended up transported with nothing inside a vast spaceship. The ship had crashed hundreds of years ago, during the waning days of an interstellar empire on the world of Arutsk. The place was still inhabited by various crew descendants and other things. But he and his companions had no idea about this and had never seen a spacecraft before. While exploring, most of the other characters became lost or killed. During one crisis, desperate to survive, Slunk was spontaneously offered a pact by an elemental power, Lord Silt, which he instantly accepted. So now he was kind of in the service of this being of filth and decay, but in a good-ish way? Slunk and one of the remaining characters ended up in a ship's locker room and started putting on ancient crew clothing and acquiring useful tools. During this, he bonded to a data tablet, Pact of the Tome, and its helpful advice sprite, Clipiandra, aka Clippy. Yes. He and the other surviving character had a lot of adventures, discovering a community built around the semi-ruins of a spaceport nearby. But if you're a fearful, greedy guy used to living a seedy life off the dregs of urban society, and you find yourself in a post-apocalyptic world with wondrous ancient stuff around, what do you do? Slunk's motives were still based on self-preservation and fear, but gradually morphed into more complex objectives. You can't really game the markets if they're weak and based on near subsistence living, so Slunk tried to build up the economy in general. There are so many ancient tech and weird supernatural threats out there. Elves are long-lived, barring violence, and living in an organized society is your best chance of not getting killed through random incidents. So Slunk tried to support any efforts to bring stability and mutual support to the local communities. You can't get around quickly if you have to walk through jungle to get everywhere, so Slunk and company started trying to salvage ancient flying machines and started a pilot school. Communities at war with each other are more likely to get you killed or collapse civilization, which is also bad for the economy, so he and his associate tried to minimize aggression and promote trade and cooperation between different areas. In a way, although he was still cautious almost to the point of paranoia and always had the idea of profit-making in his head, he ended up inadvertently becoming incredibly brave and generous, going on many missions to retrieve ancient technologies for the benefit of his adopted home. He ended up dying randomly after many sessions as part of a TPK when we rolled badly and fell many stories down an elevator shaft of an ancient spaceship, but his legacy in the spaceport town lived on. I've had a lot of great characters, such as Bernard de la Terre, who became Lord of a Knightly Order, King of a Nation, Killer of a God, and a Saint, the strongest character I ever played. There was Alvin de Vere, an Omnish noble with a great publicist and lots of money that he earned from less than scrupulous means. He really loved legal gray areas. However, I think the greatest of all time is my wizard, Pattersmith, because he was created to A, annoy the party, and B, die rather quickly. But he ended up not just surviving, he ended up becoming a beloved member of the team and my most recurring character by request. In 3rd edition, he was an abjurer and geometer, but he's a lore master in 5th edition. He worships Ogma and Mystra. Possessed of a genius intellect but the common sense of a Kender, Pattersmith wanders the Forgotten Realms, and now other settings, as a freelance problem solver who sees his magic as a potential solution to anything. His adventuring career is just a way to expand his spell library and increase his mastery, but he doesn't see himself as an adventurer. He prefers to be called an archaeologist or delver. He grew up in Lantan, raised by rock gnomes after he was orphaned as an infant, and at 10 years old apprenticed to a Halruan archmagus. He spent 2 or 3 years under his tutelage before he was expelled for being too dangerous. He showed poor judgment when using combat spells, and his research methods were too carefree. The Halruan Council banned him from further magical studies, so he stole some scrolls in a spellbook and traveled north into the Heartlands. At 15, he settled into a town named Crossing and became its resident glassblower and chemist. When he was 17, a troop of adventurers hired him to provide magical support for them while they tried to claim the hoard of a dead dragon. He saved their lives at great peril to himself from the dragon's wormlings and began his adventuring career. Since then, he's nearly died from his lack of caution on dozens of quests across the length and breadth of Faerun, read the secret biography of an ancient Yugoloth lord, made frenemies with a blue dragon, and translated the secret language of sphinxes into Common, among other things. Was playing the identical twin of one of the other players, who was a sylph rogue, Knife Master. Can't recall the character's name. It was Japanese for something wind-related. Anyways, Arashi was an Undine cleric of Brig, no archetype with the Artifice, Construct, and Earth, Metal domains, which turned out to be awesome due to the number of constructs we ended up dealing with, both as allies and enemies. Due to some rather lax and generous character creation rules, I ended up rocking Oyoroi armor, a heavy steel shield, and a couple light hammers. Our group loved our character dynamics. We were playing a morally ambiguous group of heroes for hire, and the man who played my twin and I have known each other for 30 plus years and have been close friends for the vast majority, minus his 6 years or so in the Navy, so our pretend brotherhood was very well done. Arashi was fun to play. His backstory was that his devotion to the strange deity stemmed from a brush with possession as a child, which was exercised by a wandering oracle who venerated Brig. Once he got a whiff of constructs, particularly clockworks, he was hooked and spent most of his youth absorbing all he could. We ended up being based out of a town deep in a forest somewhere. I can't recall what corner of Galarian, and since the DM had the town overrun by zombies being led by a vampire necromancer and his mind-slaved werewolf, when the town people, those who survived, and the goblin tribe, our fighter, proselytized to his religion, he was a follower of Pharasma, but also respected Sarenrae and wanted us to lead them and rename the town as they were all taken there as prisoners/slaves of the vampires. Bloodhaven was the original name. Yep, a bit on the nose. It was surrounded by woods, had vampire problems, scary dark dark forest. If you guessed Transylvania, well, you would be right. Hey, it fit, and why not? So anyway, I got the more mechanically and less fire-obsessed goblins to help me. I converted one building to my workshop and began my life's work, churning out clockworks. Later, we even gained a tribe of lizard folk, a handful of gnomes, followers of Brig we saved, and a freaking ogre. I swear our fighter was dead set, pun intended, on converting at least one demi-human per session, though he actually converted an ogre shaman to Gazra, our sorcerer's religion. We had a blast, and the party loved my creativity with the spells, powers, and clockworks I had. Clockwork Tin Viper? Huh, it can deliver one dose of poison injury or contact, or a potion? Ooh, how many can I fit in a handy haversack and shove cure criticals into? Animate objects via domain power as a standard action? Oh yeah, boss has 2 huge-sized stone statues of himself behind his throne? Oh yeah? Can you say stop hitting yourself in Draconic? I can. I even made a clockwork wagon that was capable of being programmed to self-drive, had a smooth ride, and doubled as a boat. Slightly armored and built 2 clockwork servants to upkeep and wind it, and each other. There were even plans drawn up to add a dirigible section with a couple collectives of blades for flight later on. Though, one last story. One of the fights we had was the DM trying to be mean. He had statues that were actually Graven Guardians. They were instructed to grapple any intruder that did not detect as evil and walk into the nearby water with them. One problem, the other party members were hiding behind the fighter, who was too hard to grapple for the constructs. But they grabbed me quite easily. So, here the poor cleric is, being dragged off to drown in his heavy armor by a construct. I was saying in character to not worry, I would be right back. I had a domain ability usable like 8 or 9 times a day. Bypass DR and hardness for constructs that damage them for 1d6 plus half CL, which I was using while being grappled. The DM is a bit worried, as he realizes the fighter will take 20 or 30 turns to down the 2 he is engaged with, and I will not likely be able to kill the construct with my ability. Thus, he is about to drown his cleric, or so he thought. He forgot he allowed me to take the amphibious Undine trait. Drown who? Me? Nah, I'm good. Even got a swim speed. Needless to say, it was fairly surprising when my drenched cleric comes back up with his hammer in hand, ready to help the fighter slowly beat the other 2 down. Hello and well-hailed, brave adventurer, and thank you so much for easing into a fresh start with us today. If you are an observer of the Gregorian calendar, and also if not, it's never the wrong timing for a fresh start if you need one too. If you'd like to share your story with us, please share it on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. We have so many threads, I'm sure your story has a home on one of them. If you're a DM or a player looking for a group, you may have some luck if you check out our Group Finder Discord server below. If you want to hang out and watch us play Dungeons & Dragons live, we go live every Wednesday at twitch.tv/fire_n_dice at noon Pacific. And if you're just here for the stories, you can hang out with us every Sunday at twitch.tv/MrRipper stream for story time. If you love me and want me to be happy, feel free to check out my Instagram and TikTok at Dave Makes Noises. I've been very busy over there for the past little while, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the shenanigans that I'm up to. Anyways, thank you again so much for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s, ding the dong for advantage. We love you here at Rip Daddy's Festive Holiday Hutch, and we'll see you next time.